Welcome back, everybody. Another edition here of the Auburn Undercover podcast on the 24/7 Sports Network. My name is Nathan King, joined here by Jason Caldwell, as always presented by AU Club. I guess this is technically Thursday, and we're not live, but we're here on Thursday night, a week until Christmas, which is kind of crazy to think about. Jason's got a more festive.
I had to give a little background for the Christmas background today, so I moved a little bit. So
I had there's my plant, my bonsai tree that is out of sight. It's not doing so
put
hot.
one ornament on there, you've been fine. So
yeah, it would actually probably die immediately if I tried to hang anything on it. But this time of year, as we'll get into, I guess now with the single portal window, this is going to be the pre-portal process, where obviously guys can't enter yet, but they can say that they're going to enter, and obviously that opens up back channels and makes it just a little bit clearer. Honestly, for coaches is the main thing, so that they can look at guys who have announced on social media and things like that and say, okay, we know that guy's going to go in, we know that guy, and you can just kind of prepare. So we'll get into that. That's kind of our main topic of discussion today. I'm trying to think, when we did that show last week with Christian, the staff had not been completed. I believe the two hires since then to round things out are the two Larrys, if I'm not mistaken, because Coleman Hutzler was there. So
because it happened while Coleman Hutzler.
Correct.
Yeah, 2 minutes. Yeah, so I think both Larrys are the only guys since then. So
yes, Larry's Porter and Scott. Larry Porter, we know from the Gus Malzahn era. He was the tight ends coach for 4 years, I believe, from 2017 to 2020. And now he comes back as the running backs coach, which he held that role at West Virginia most recently. He's held that role at a lot of different places, as I understand it. And then Larry Scott, it was definitely one that caught your eye. Like, I can't claim to have known much about him before that hire, but a sitting head coach from Howard University. Their season just ended over the weekend, so I guess it was a day or two after their season ended. You hire a sitting head coach, a guy who's got a lot of SEC experience as well. Coached at Florida, coached at Tennessee, coached at Miami. And his son, we maybe should have had him on our radar a little sooner.
Yeah, and I thought about that too. It probably should have been a hint, but you just never really know.
His son, Larry Scott III, played for Golish at USF. He is a defensive analyst on this Auburn staff. So we can start with Larry Porter, Jason, somebody I'm sure he was here before I started covering the team, but I'm sure that from his time under Gus Malzahn. Recruiting, look, he was a lot younger when he won Recruiter of the Year, but still, just as I understand it, a very likable personality, and a guy who comes in to be focused on that Auburn running back room, taking over for Derek Nix.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You look at, I think one of the keys you mentioned earlier is that, look, he's got experience coaching multiple positions. I think that's a big deal when you start talking about kind of fitting in an offense. You understand, because everything has to work together. If you're a veteran, you're experienced, and you coach multiple positions, I think that's a big deal. And so, yeah, Larry Porter's a guy that will recruit heavily. He's a guy that has a ton of ties up the East Coast. A lot of places he's been. Obviously, was at West Virginia. He'd been at North Carolina before, so he's got some ties in those areas. And now, those are things you can do. But I think you think about Tennessee is an ever growing football market. I think those are some areas you can reach into. Matter of fact, Auburn has a couple offers out in Tennessee today from the 27 class. So you start to think about kind of the places he touches, and same thing with Larry Scott. I think it's East Coast Florida heavy for both those guys, and I think really strong additions on both sides because of the veteran aspect of it, to go along with some of the youth you've got, some of the experience, and some of the guys that have ties together. I think it's a really good mix of guys that you're bringing in.
I wrote about this earlier this week, but so now the on-field staff is the on-field assistant staff. Guys special teams coordinators mixed in there. Brad Wilson, we talked about him on the last podcast, but we understand that he will be over the outside linebackers, while Coleman Hutzler will coach the edge guys. Sorry, I got a text about a player, and I'm just terrified at all moments.
Yeah, all the time.
But I think, Jason, this is a staff that is very clear what Alex Golish was trying to accomplish. The brain trust on offense was just bring over that system that worked at USF and hope it works here. He's got his play caller. He's got his right-hand man, Cody Burns. He's got his very young up-and-coming offensive line coach. Brought one guy on defense, DeMarcus Van Dyke, that he just thinks is a rising star. But everywhere else, other than that offensive identity, that group that's been doing it for a while, everywhere else is just a ton of SEC experience and a ton of experience in general. And I think that was important for Alex Golesh to go out and go, yes, I've been in the SEC, but I don't know this place. I don't know this job. It's guys who've been in the league, but also now with Larry Porter, it's guys, and Cody Burns obviously as well. It's guys who've been at Auburn.
Yeah, you have I like the mix, and we'll see what it looks like in 2 or 3 years. That's the only way to judge it. But on paper, you look at it and you go, man, you like the pieces that are put together, because you're right. There's connections at different levels. You have the connection of, hey, these guys are with me, familiar with me. They know the system. I know exactly what they're going to do every day. So you have that trio of offensive guys. Then you go, look, okay, what do you go experienced with Larry Scott, experienced with Larry Porter, to go along with some younger coaches on that offensive side of the ball. So you go like, man, that's a good mix. Defensively, you keep DJ Dirk and you keep Montreal King Williams. So you have a connection there. Bring in Coleman Hutzler, who has coached with DJ Dirk before. So you have another connection. Then you bring in another coordinator, and then you bring in a young guy. And then you bring in a guy that was a coordinator in this league as well on the back end, in Tim Banks. And so you have a mix of experience. You have a mix of guys that know the Southeastern Conference, and in youth and energy. You like you said, on paper, I like it. And you mentioned on the field, there'll probably be a few more assistant whatever coach. Those guys will be on the field now, because there's no limit to it. But these are the guys that we feel like will be on the road recruiting for the most part. You may have a player personnel guy that goes on the road a little bit here or there too. But this feels like in the old days, what would consist of your staff is in place now for Alex Golesh and the Auburn Tigers.
Yeah, I mean, you can sub those guys out, guys who go on the road.
Right.
And like you said, I mean, it's so Wilson will coach the linebackers or the outside linebackers. That leaves DJ Durkin probably just to the middle guys, which makes sense. Is you want to streamline. I meant to mention this, by the way, when Derek Nix, by the way, will be at Alabama next season. He's taking their vacant wide receivers coach position that was left vacant by I'm blanking on the name, but went to go become the Oregon State head coach. Marcus Shepard.
Yeah, and what's really interesting is Nathan, you mentioned it, but look, you try to get in touch with Will Muschamp to get some thoughts on Hutzler, who's coming in, and look up Will Muschamp today is going back to Texas to be the defensive coordinator. So, hey, it's movement all over the place. You have to keep your head on a swivel in every single capacity right now in college athletics. It's a never ending thing, and that includes coaches' moves and assistant coaches as well.
Yeah, I texted Ronnie as well. I was like, oh, it makes sense why he's not returning my text messages. I thought he was just sitting on the couch enjoying being retired and watching his son play at Vanderbilt.
No,
Coach Boom is back in the game at Texas. Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it, Jason. This is going to be, I think, for the foreseeable future until things change in a major way. This is going to be Black December for a lot of places.
Yes.
We mentioned the pre-portal. That's kind of what we'll get into. There have been positives and negatives for Auburn so far, which is to be expected. As we understand it, all those conversations are done. They kids went home on holiday break, and just to get down to the nitty-gritty of it, their offers were made, because that's what this is nowadays. Obviously, it's all a money thing, and so you're starting to see not only at Auburn but around the country guys re-signing, and that is just the wording of it. That's just what it is nowadays. I was talking to you earlier today. Like USC has been the most transparent with it, like straight up saying we have re-signed this player. And then I was going to get your thoughts on Mario Craver today, his agency saying he's going to be the highest paid receiver in Texas A&M history, whatever that means, because we only started getting this officially a few years ago.
But yeah, like one of the highest paid receivers in the country is like, well, okay, I guess we just don't know. That's the part of this. You don't really know anything. You think you know, you don't really know, and that's leads us into some potential losses, because right now that's all it is. We don't know who exactly will absolutely be gone and not on the team next year, but you start to hear, and two names really jump out. I mean, there's two names that you go, those jump out when you look at Auburn. There's other guys you go, hey, you expected those things. Jay Crawford wasn't out of the blue. We'd been getting some buzz that, hey, that's a guy that might be looking at this. But the one that came out on Thursday, Malik Blockton, was a shock. There's no question about that. When you think about Nathan, just the history, him growing up, never backing off the program, being committed even through coaching change, all to see him say, hey, I'm going to go look, it just shows you the world we're living in right now, which is, man, it is 100% year after year renegotiating free agency in college athletics. And it's a very, very difficult time.
Yeah. And this conversation will not be obviously intended to go after anyone.
No, I mean, hey,
you and I couldn't think more of Malik Blockton.
No, absolutely not. Jay Crawford, both these guys, and everybody. Like it's the position that you've been put in now, where you're going, look, if you have this available to you, you know, who knows? I might have been in the same situation, going, look, somebody else they're going to tell me we're going to double my salary. I think we both probably, you know, over the years, somebody going, hey, would you be interested? And I'm like, yeah, I might be interested, but you know, I don't know. I really like where I am, but nobody's come to me and said, hey, would you be interested in doubling your salary? And you know, then I'm not going, I like where I am, but man, I might like that even better.
Yeah,
that's the world we're in right now, because somebody's out there is going to be willing to pay more than Auburn can pay for just about everybody. There'll be some guys that you go, nope, we're not letting that guy go. For most of these guys, you have, Nathan, I know we've talked about this a bunch, but you have to at some point go, hey, how much do we think this guy's worth? Because in the end, that's what this is. NFL teams do it. College teams now have to do it. You have to figure out how much not everybody's going to be able to go, hey, we're going to go spend $70 million on a football roster. I think you look around the country and most people are pointing towards a similar number that Auburn has, which is about that $30 million range. But Nathan, I'm thinking about it today. 4 years ago, when this thing first started and we started first getting NIL, and even the last couple of years, there was probably 25 teams that you felt like had enough money to go and compete in that role. Now everybody that's a group of five, that's a group of four program now is going to have enough money to go get guys, and that's the difference.
And somebody, okay, so you mentioned there are a certain number of players on your team, and you are not going to be able to pay every single person when you make somebody like Xavier Atkins a priority. That's somebody we haven't touched on yet. Auburn's All-American linebacker.
Huge.
By all accounts, best player on the team last year, will be back. And Auburn announced it, or he announced on social media. That is completely the same as what USC, what I've been saying, re-signing. It's all the same. They just
other than USC looking like it's the Washington Commanders announcing their signings after draft. I mean, you know, but yes. Hey,
yes, these things are all the same. But yeah, so that's one you get. Cam Coleman is a massive priority for this staff right now. We believe Deuce Knight is a massive priority for this staff. And you and I are talking about today. Million plus easily for somebody like Atkins. The quarterback number we just hear drives up every single year. That's not going to change until we get a collective bargaining agreement in the sport. But you and I are talking about today, you cannot, if somebody wants to be paid the same as Xavier Atkins and gets word of what his contract is, you can't pay everyone on the roster Xavier Atkins, because $30 million is a lot of money. Well, when you start paying every single person $1.5 million, that money goes up.
It doesn't last very long. No, that's the world now, because it honestly didn't hit me really until yesterday, because I started thinking about it. In NFL terms, you go in NFL terms, how many guys are negotiating contracts after the season heading into the next year? So you go, there may be a few free agents on your roster, and you'll draft some guys, but that's down the road. And then you'll have some free agent time, but it's all segmented. You go like, look, this is when you sign these guys. This is when you sign these guys. So it's probably in essence 6 or 7 guys at a time at the most. That's for an NFL team. Right now, Auburn and most every other team in the country right now has 60 players on your current roster, all at the same time wanting to negotiate or renegotiate a contract. All of them, because it don't matter who you are. You either, especially when you have a coaching change, because now you got, look, I know what you were paid last year. Well, here's what we think that we can pay you this year. Now you're renegotiating an entire roster, not to mention trying to figure out what it's going to look like. What do you need out of the portal? Who do you scout? Who do you do those things? I don't know how you do it. I don't know how it works to be able to do that 60 times for players on your roster when you're trying to figure out who they are, first of all. And then you're dealing with agents, and I'm going to do agents sometimes this way, that who knows the agenda. This is not the NFL, where it's very regulated in terms of agents and the way they do things. It is not the case in college athletics. It's unfortunate that we're sitting here having to talk about this over and over again, and it's not going to get any better unless something changes drastically. But it's a no-win situation for most schools, and it's a no-win situation for a lot of players, because a lot of guys are going to go, hey, I'm going to go search for more money, and they're going to find out it's not there. Again, it makes for not a very Merry Christmas for most folks that are either covering it, having to do this, and having to deal with it. That's for sure.
Yeah, and I think what you said about the NFL hit home for me as well, and it's something to think about. Like, you have all those guys knocking down your door to renegotiate, and they have a hard deadline, and they can easily say, this is what we're doing, this is what we're negotiating, this is the number I want, and you don't get it to me. Well, portal's coming right up on January 2nd, and I'm going to announce, and whether that's a true declaration of wanting to enter the portal, whether that's leverage, because like we said, that doesn't mean these guys are gone. These guys aren't gone until, even when they're in the portal, they're not gone. No. The coaching staff, once they're in the portal, the coaching staff can choose, I believe is the rule. Once you're in the portal, they can say, okay, no, you're good. But these kind of guys you would want to bring back. And so, I mean, yeah, it's tough to see it as anything other than free agency negotiation. Because guys like, especially a guy like Malik Blockton, I mean, I love Jay Crawford as well, but a guy like Malik Blockton, who has been all Auburn for so long, I can't imagine this isn't a place he wants to be. Now, you brought up something that I think more people need to think about. You brought up earlier today. Do you want to go somewhere you can win a national championship? Because I think we have to start talking in those terms as well, because that's what you talk about when you talk about pro players. You say, oh, well, Aaron Rodgers, whatever, he wants to go where he can win a Super Bowl before he retires. Like, it's not to that degree, but now that it is basically free agency, you have to consider every single factor that a player might be thinking of.
And I think it's something we talked about. Look, in wins and losses in the short term, one individual game doesn't really have a factor. Look, you can go, hey man, that one game, that doesn't really factor my decision. Look, we have to face facts. Like Auburn's on a unprecedented run of lack of success. Players, like, guys want to win. That's still part of it. And people, because I said, look, everybody's going to lose players. And I had kind of somebody kind of respond and say, well, what about this team and this team? Well, that team, and that team are in the playoffs and have been for the past 4 or 5 years. It might be easier to talk a guy into staying if you're in the playoffs than as opposed to, hey, look, you just went 5-7 again. That's reality. That's the difficulty right now of this. Going, look, hey, you guys. Some of these guys have been here 4 years. They've heard from 2 different coaching staffs going, it's going to be different. And it may be this time. I sure hope it is. I hope it's different. But for them, it's like, hey, I need to see it a little bit. And so I think that's part of what you're dealing with now at Auburn, going, look, okay, I've got a vision. All right. Some guys will be good. Some guys, and there's going to be a bunch of guys that go, hey, I love it at Auburn. I don't want to go anywhere. And we're going to hear from a lot of those guys too. There are going to be some guys that go, look, there's something else I'm looking for, whether that's money, chance to go to maybe a team that's more proven, who knows? But that's what happens when you have the ability to leave every year. You're going to have those opportunities and you're going to have those losses.
Yeah, and they just you mentioned the agent side of things, and I was talking to somebody today. There's no question to me who has more influence in this sport, who has the most influence in this sport from the months of December to July.
It's not even close.
And it's not even close. That is where we are right now. And until, like you mentioned, regulations, a CBA is really the thing that I come back to as what's needed right now. But these, not only those people, but you hear it from everywhere. And you said something earlier, you don't know what you don't know. And you can just say a number and look, this isn't any different than any other sort of job negotiation, but I mean, you and I, there's an anecdote that I won't go into detail about, but of a really good Auburn player hearing it from somebody about the new coaching staff, and it's like people have agendas that they want for different players, and so yeah, I mean, it's like you said, it's the world we live in, and Auburn is not immune to it, but at the same time, Auburn's far from the only one. I mean, there's been some really, I hesitate to even say surprising, because
just look at Missouri. They re-up, they sign an extension, and you lose your quarterback and 3 of your top 4 receivers. I mean, 75% of your receivers are gone from last year. And you start in TCU, Josh Hoover goes in the portal. The guy threw for 3,500 yards and 29 touchdowns. There are going to be losses in this because of the opportunities out there, or the perceived opportunities out there. And there are going to be some, because look, everybody, and I come back to this one because this is the one that gets lost a little bit. Now, listen, I'm gonna throw a name out there. I'm gonna say, look, Malcolm Simmons, he might be your 2. He's not gonna be your 1, because Cam's your 1 guy. Malcolm might be your 2 or 3. Go, hey, that's a good payday. But for 60% of the teams, maybe he's gonna be 1. You start going to Kansas and Iowa State and Maryland and Purdue, and well, those teams now have money to spend for the first time. And all of a sudden they're going to go, look, hey, we're paying you Cam Coleman money because you are our Cam Coleman. Well, if you're Auburn, you can't have 3 of those guys. Yep. You can't pay 3 of those guys. And so that's the part of this now that I think people have to realize somewhat, is that, look, there's going to be money to be spent from a lot of teams that have never been in this market before. And as that old saying goes, look, they're not going to come after your 1, but they might get your 2 and 3. And so that's the part of this now where you have to be very, very strategic in doing this. And you also can't get caught up in, again, just matching, because you can't win a football game with 14 players. You might can in 1A football in Alabama, but in the SEC, like, you can't pay 14 players $30 million and win football games.
Yep.
You're going to have to get a lot of value on down the line. And right now, the only way to try to figure that out is to jump in feet first and see what happens.
Yeah. And I was talking to somebody today about this whole craziness, and kind of asking me there. I kind of asked me, well, it's just the transfer rules, right, have been super lenient. And it's like, yes, but something you mentioned earlier, the lack of multi-year contracts, which cannot be, nobody can put the hammer down on it right now. And again, that goes back to regulations, but that's why with Michigan's coaching change, people are having an interesting conversation about Bryce Underwood at quarterback, because remember, he made all that NIL money and it was a historic deal or whatever, but it was historically, it was a 2-year contract, and that was very public. And so now it's that's got to be hard to get out of.
Correct. Well, now the coach is gone, and you go, hey, who do you make the deal with? Make it with Michigan. Well,
yep.
Again, I don't know. That's the part of this. Here's the thing for me, and I mentioned this in my mailbag, which will be out on Friday as well, but somebody asked about this process. And I said, for much of our lifetime, in my lifetime, the schools and coaches held all the power, had all of it. Then once the transfer rules got lenient a little bit, it started to even back out. And then you started going cost of attendance money, and you started doing Austin money, and you started doing things go, okay, this is shifting a little bit to the players. Now it's totally 100% player driven and agent driven, 100%, because they have all the power. And people go, like, coaches can leave too. Yeah, they can. But right now and people wonder about portal timing and portal rules. Look, players and coaches both want to have guys on their roster that they know who they are in the spring. That's why we're doing what we are now. I don't think that anybody wants to go, well, we're going to wait till after the spring to do a portal period because that makes more sense from a timing standpoint. It does. It's also going to limit your effectiveness. Like you're not going to be as effective if you haven't gone through the spring and you haven't done those things. The only caveat is Hugh Freeze, Nathan, remember how he talked about for years. I'd love to just do a mini camp and do OTAs in the summer. If you did that, then you could wait till after spring. Football season's over with. You could have a portal period, sign guys in May, have OTAs in June, come back, practice into July, start in August, and hit the ground running. That may be the only way this thing works to where you could go, guys aren't opting out before bowl games. We're going to see guys opt out before playoff games. It's going to happen. Something has to get fixed, and collective bargaining and maybe that movement of the calendar and eliminating spring football might be two ways to help it out.
Yeah, all that we know is that it's far from over for Auburn. I mean, shoot, it's December 18th.
It hadn't even started.
January 2nd to January 17th is going to be unlike anything we've ever seen because we've never done the one portal window. We've never had this much buildup, and Auburn just so happens to be in a new coaching staff that is going to have to hit the portal really hard because far from over in terms of guys leaving Auburn. I'd be stunned.
I got to ask Nathan. Somebody said, how many guys can Auburn sign and how many will they sign out of the portal? How many would you guess right now portal additions Auburn has for 2026?
Okay, so I just graded last year's and they had 20 guys. 42.
I said the same thing. I said I think it's at least 35.
Yes.
I think you're at least 35 portal additions because you now have more roster spots too. You're going to have 105. You're going to lose a few more guys. There's going to be more turnover. Yes, I think this is going to be a 35 to 40 person portal window for this roster. I do.
Get ready to learn a lot more names on the back of the jersey, everybody.
For 1 year, and then we'll do it over again.
And then we'll do it all over again. Ooh, very sustainable. Good sport. Good work, everybody. Got to a good point. Before we sign off here, talk a little Auburn basketball, just a bit. Very interesting response today from Stephen Pearl, Jason, to something you and I have kind of tossed around the idea of, and people have asked about, asked him today, hey, could you add another big man? I didn't even ask him big man, but like, are y'all considering the process of adding somebody mid-year? Like, what does that look like? Because obviously Emeka Oporum is out for the season with an undisclosed medical issue. And not even from a playing perspective. And that's something Steven talked about at the Chattanooga game, which I think was important. Like, it's not even about guys in the rotation. Emeka wasn't even going to play it. He wasn't playing against high major teams. It's about practice. It's about you do not have a center on this roster who's available to practice. You don't. Like, there's no true centers left. So just from that perspective alone, can you go get a guy in the middle of the year? It sounds like, from what Steven said, they can if they get some exceptions. And so the biggest thing is that all their scholarships are filled out. That was news to me, Jason, that all 13 of them were filled out. That just signals to me, and I'd love to get some more clarity on it. Maybe I will. That signals to me that some of these walk-ons, they just went into the season. They're like, well, we have these spots available. Steven says he will not do that in the future for situations such as these.
Yes.
But we mentioned USC. They signed Cam Woods today. He's a guy who's like the 2020 class, a highly rated recruit. He's a grad transfer. He's ready to play right away. So if they were to pull off something very creative, I would say chances of it right now are very slim. It would have to be a JUCO or a grad transfer guy. But you can do that nowadays. And so it sounds like, from what Steven was saying, they are actively looking into this, seeing if they can get some sort of NCAA exception for Oporum's red shirt, because they said he can't get a medical red shirt because it didn't happen before the season, which is that's sort of bizarre. Like he made the example, he said if a guy blows out his knee in the first game of the year, you cannot get a retroactive medical red shirt.
You can't get it till the end. I think
once
his eligibility is over with, then he would then try to get it. Same thing we heard about, like with Horatio Fields. They're like, well, we can't wait. The season's over with. Once he is done with eligibility, then you could go, look, can we get this year back? And then can we get that year back too? But yeah, so right now you don't know what it looks like with him, but I like the potential maybe of a JUCO route if you could find a big body guy who's maybe a freshman who's played well this first semester, and you go, look, this guy's 6'9", 250, and he can rebound and be physical, and he's playing right now. Hey, you want to come in and we'll take care of you next year. We'll give you some NIL money now. No question that you need a body to come in and give you some support for sure.
Yeah, and I think the workaround, because Steven said today, number one, he was like, well, bigs don't go on trees. I didn't even ask him about bigs, but I think that, that's obviously what we're looking at here. But then the other thing he said, we can't just kick a guy off the team. They've got 13 scholarship spots, 2 walk-ons, and then 3 designated student athletes. I'm not going to sit around and act like I know what that is. But so you'd have to have the available space. There'd have to be some sort of exception, but you would love a guy like an AD Scott. Remember him from the last couple of years? Like that guy, I was thinking about that today. If he had never portaled, which it makes sense why he did, but like he was the exact blueprint of the type of player you'd want right now. A guy who's just sat on your bench, worked scout team, 6'9", 240, can go get rebounds, can go practice. And so we'll see how that goes. But of course, another huge challenge for this team on Saturday. They play at Purdue. They basically play at Purdue.
Yeah,
they play in Indianapolis. Like it's like when Auburn played them in Birmingham. This is the 4th team this season that has either been AP ranked number 1 at some point or has been analytically ranked number 1 by KenPom at some point. So pretty big challenge for Auburn basketball on Saturday. They are no stranger to it now, Jason. They have lost all 3 of those games previously. But Steven brought up a good point today, and that is that Michigan and Arizona, he said, quote, are different beasts. And that you and I talked about that earlier today. Like those are wagons. Those are teams that are absolutely tremendous. Houston's really good, but Auburn was able to hang with them for a little bit. The question is, which of those buckets does Purdue fall in? Do they have the potential to just run all over this Auburn team? Or is it going to be a little bit closer like the Houston game? I tend to like this matchup for Auburn better than Arizona and Michigan because nobody's like Arizona and Michigan except for Arizona and Michigan. But this team, first and foremost, is going to have to play way better defensively to have a chance in this game.
Yep. You look at really the differences in these teams. Like Purdue's, everybody's bigger than Auburn. They have more size. But you look and go, look, Auburn is not very good at assist to field goals made. Purdue is really good in assist to field goals made. That's one of the things they do with one of the best point guards in the country. Not shooting it particularly well, but they've been really good inside the paint. And you look at a guy like Trey Kaufman-Rim, but Oscar Clough. They got two guys that can go get it, and then Braden Smith on the outside. It's a really good basketball team. You're right. I don't think physically they're as imposing as Arizona and Michigan were, just the way they play. But this team went into Tuscaloosa and won. And you look at what they've done. It's going to be a challenge. And like you're going to have to really rebound, and you have to avoid turnovers, because you turn the ball over against Purdue and give them extra possessions, you're going to be dead in the water. And so this team can go out and make shots. I do think from an athleticism standpoint, Nathan, I think it's a pretty good matchup. Like Auburn has guys that can go take advantage of some of these things, but man, you're going to have some really good minutes from Sway and those guys, Jovic inside. They're going to have to play some big minutes on Saturday.
It's just you and I are going to say this a lot this season, but if they get good Keyshawn Murphy on both ends of the floor, it just makes such a huge difference.
And avoid foul trouble. Yep.
Yeah, that's been and I think they're mostly healthy now at this point. Kevin Overton didn't play in the second half of the game against Chattanooga after turning his ankle in warmups, but Stephen Pearl said he's fine. For a guy like Braden Smith, I'm excited to go see. Kevin, they haven't had that much of guard challenges this season. It's been a lot of front court stuff we talk about with all these games. Now, Kingston Flemings for Houston was just unbelievable in that game.
Yeah.
But, is Kevin Overton the type? I asked Steven this a few weeks ago. Is Kevin Overton like your Denver Jones, Zep Jasper type, where you can just say, go get that guy and go defend him? And Steven wasn't ready to go there, but he was like, I think he can be. Like, he has those defensive skills. And so really interested to see that. Like you said, can you get good Sway? Can you get good Elijah Freeman? I think makes such a difference for this team. I think back to that Houston game when he was poking into passing lanes, using his length, attacking with his athleticism. This is a team that still, Jason, as we talked about, as we knew was going to be the case, we're picking all these individual parts and we're saying, if you can get this, that's a team that hasn't played together, that doesn't know how to put all those things cohesively together on a consistent basis. Still a pretty darn good basketball team. Yep. Auburn has, but at this point, we're still waiting for them to put together a complete performance against a good team, and that's not really a surprise.
Yeah, no, and look, I think you look at these teams, Bruce Pearl, Stephen Pearl, you think about Tennessee, you think about it starts defensively, and can they play that suffocating style of defense, create some turnovers, and really limit this, especially look, we saw touches in the paint. They got to keep people from getting the ball inside the paint because Trey Kaufman will score in the paint. But that's the problem, is that you got to limit the availability of those touches in the paint, because then you can help Keyshawn Murphy stay in the game longer. And so can they force them away from the basket? Because if you do that, you'll have a shot. But if you let Purdue just dump it inside all day long, then it's going to be a long day.
Yep, it's about cohesion. It's about execution of the defensive game plan. Like, you trust Murphy and you trust Sway to do what they need to do in the post, to front the post, to deny those touches. Do you trust Jovic and Keyshawn Hall to do that consistently? Those guys have not been very consistent defenders. So that's what it's about. You're going to need good games from everybody. And then after that, they play Queens Monday after Christmas at 9 p.m., Jason. I'm sure that'll be a jam-packed building. Then it's SEC play. So came here really quickly. Excited for SEC play to get rolling. And with all the transfer portal madness, everybody, I would like just for everybody to remember that you have a ranked basketball team that's pretty darn good, that's going to be competitive in the SEC this year. So make sure you give yourself a little bit of grace there and enjoy that as well. That's 5:30 Central Time Saturday on Peacock. If you don't have your free trial, then go ahead and get that ready to go.
Yeah, I guess YouTube TV, it will be on College Sports Network, I think. NBC Sports Network. Okay. So if you have that channel, you can watch it as well. But yeah,
there you go.
It's going to be a difficult game to find at times, probably.
I have no idea if I do, but people are going to have to learn that their way around NBC before Auburn goes to Notre Dame. So make sure you get that. Make sure you get that down. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to this episode of the Auburn Undercover podcast. Hope we touched on a few different topics, and we'll be back with you guys next week. Thank you so much to AU Club for sponsoring us once again. This is another one of those nights where it wouldn't be terrible to be out there. A few days ago, it would have been absolutely brutal.
A little rainy and wet tonight, but I went out for lunch earlier this week and had my favorite, my chicken sandwich and sweet potato fries. So food just awesome. So go check them out if you haven't, and go see everything they got going on.
For sure. Thank you so much to AU Club. For Jason Caldwell, I am Nathan King. Thank you guys so much for joining us, and we will talk to y'all later.